The dark side of empathy, how compassion turns into control in space. Exploration. Picture this. You're floating 250 miles above Earth in the cramped quarters of a space station. Weeks of isolation have worn you down. You're tired, anxious, and starting to miss home. Then your commander pulls you aside. With a calm, understanding tone, they tell you, "The team needs you. Don't let your fear hold us back." At first, it feels supportive, like they understand you. But later you realize something strange. Were they really comforting you, or were they using your emotions to keep you in line? This is the paradox of empathy, a force that can heal, but also a force that can manipulate. And nowhere is this paradox more powerful than in space exploration, the most extreme environment humanity has ever faced. Today, we're diving deep into the shadow side of empathy, how emotional manipulation shows up in the lives of astronauts, and even in the way space companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin shape our vision of the future. Empathy, the double-edged sword. When most people hear the word empathy, they think of kindness, compassion, and understanding. And yes, empathy can do all of those things, but empathy itself isn't moral. It's neutral. It's simply the ability to tune into someone else's emotions. And like any tool, it depends on how it's used. In the hands of a friend, empathy can bring comfort. In the hands of a manipulator, it can push you into choices you didn't want to make. It's like having a psychological map of someone's vulnerabilities. With it, you can guide them or exploit them. Now imagine that in the isolated, high-pressure environment of space, where every emotion is magnified. Emotional pressure in extreme environments. Astronaut life is nothing like the glossy posters. It's months of confinement, recycled air, and no escape. You're not just an explorer, you're a symbol carrying the weight of humanity's ambitions. Here, empathy becomes a survival tool. The crew member who can sense emotions is the one who can maintain harmony. But that same skill can also tilt into control. Imagine a commander who notices a crewmate's fear during a dangerous mission. Instead of openly discussing it, they lean on that fear to demand compliance. Or a colleague who senses another's need for approval and uses it to win silent allies during disagreements. These aren't villains, these are survival strategies. But in space, where mistakes can kill, emotional manipulation doesn't just influence, it can decide the fate of an entire mission. The corporate space race, empathy at scale. But the story doesn't stop inside a spacecraft. Let's zoom out to the companies leading the space race. SpaceX, Blue Origin. They don't just sell rockets, they sell visions. Elon Musk talks about saving humanity by colonizing Mars. Jeff Bezos describes trillions of humans living in orbiting colonies. These aren't just business pitches. They're emotional appeals, crafted with empathy for humanity's deepest fears and desires. Fear that Earth is fragile and our survival is uncertain. Hope that we could belong to something greater, that our lives could play a role in humanity's destiny. These visions inspire millions, but they also persuade investors, governments, and the public to pour resources into one vision of the future over another. Empathy here becomes less about connection and more about shaping belief. Is this manipulation, or is it leadership? That's the paradox. Philosophical reflections. The shadow of empathy. Carl Jung once wrote that every strength casts a shadow. For empathy, that shadow is the temptation to use emotional insight for power. The Stoics would warn us, never let emotions rule over reason. Nietzsche might see this as a subtle form of the will to power, where compassion masks the drive to control. And in the case of space exploration, empathy isn't just interpersonal, it's civilizational. It's how entire societies are steered, not by logic alone, but by stories that tap directly into our emotions. Why it matters for humanity's future. So why does this matter? Because in space, the margin for error is razor thin. A manipulated decision could mean mission failure or worse. And at the corporate level, the emotional stories that dominate today will decide which futures we actually build tomorrow. If empathy can inspire unity, it can also justify exploitation. If it can heal, it can also control. And when we take humanity's psychology beyond Earth, these dynamics only grow stronger. Final thoughts. Empathy isn't inherently good or bad. It's a force that can connect or control, heal or harm. And as we step into the stars, we must remember, rockets and engines will take us far, but it's human psychology that will decide whether we thrive or collapse. So, next time you hear a stirring speech about humanity's destiny in space, ask yourself, is this empathy being used to connect or to control? Because in philosophy and in space, every answer only leads to another question.